Welcome to AI TechBook. Today, Claude Sonnet 5. What actually changed and whether you should switch. When Claude Sonnet 5 landed, I watched the same take go around all day. A new Sonnet just beat the flagship Opus on a benchmark, and it's cheaper, so switch everything to it. Done. I almost did. Then I actually read the numbers, and both halves of that pitch fell apart in my hands. It does not match Opus, it trails it on coding, and it is not a third cheaper. Not once you see your real bill. Watch the pitch crack, because the honest story underneath is more useful than the hype. What Claude Sonnet 5 really is, and when switching is actually the right call. So did Sonnet 5 become the new top model? That was my first assumption, and it was wrong. Sonnet 5 is the most agentic Sonnet yet, and it closes a lot of the distance to Opus 4.8, but it does not move Anthropic's frontier. That frontier still belongs to Mythos 5. Here's the part that's true and small. On the GDPval knowledge work benchmark, Sonnet 5 edges Opus 4.8, 1618 to 1615. 3 points. Inside the noise. But real. The first time a Sonnet has beaten the Opus of its own generation on anything. So beat Opus is true on exactly one benchmark by 3 points. Hold Sonnet 5 as a very strong mid-tier model, not a flagship. Everyone quoted me a giant coding score for Sonnet 5. The trouble was, no two people quoted the same one. I saw 72, I saw 82, I saw 85, and none of them lived on an Anthropic page. So I stopped repeating it, and I'll show you the number Anthropic actually stands behind. On its headline agentic-coding benchmark, Sonnet 5 scores 63.2. Opus 4.8 is 69.2. Sonnet 4.6 was 58.1. So it's a real jump over the last Sonnet and still 6 points behind Opus. The one place it noses ahead, again, is knowledge work, 1618 to 1615. Trails on coding edges one knowledge score. That's the real shape, not it matches Opus. This is the one that almost got me. The headline is a third cheaper. And if that were the whole story, it'd be an easy yes. Here's the whole story. Standard pricing for Sonnet 5 is 3 and 15 per million tokens. Exactly the same as Sonnet 4.6. There's an intro price of 2 and 10 running through the end of August. So far, so cheap. Now watch the same sentence get tokenized twice. Sonnet 5 uses a new tokenizer, and it emits about 30% more tokens for the same text. Same words. More tokens. A lower price per token. Times 30% more tokens nets out to roughly the same cost per request at the intro rate. Cost neutral, not a discount. And after the end of August, that same request costs a little more than it did on 4.6. The opposite of the headline. Here's where a lazy drop-in swap actually bites. 3 request shapes that work fine on Sonnet 4.6 now fail on Sonnet 5. First, adaptive thinking is on by default. Second, if you send a manual thinking budget the way you used to, you get a 400 error. And third, if you set temperature or top P to anything but the default, that's a 400 error too. Watch 2 of those stamp red and 1 stamp green. The old thinking budget and the old sampling knobs are not knobs anymore, they're hard errors. So a naive port throws on the first call. The upside, Sonnet 5 is the first Sonnet-tier to take the extra high effort level and effort defaults to high. You steer how hard it thinks with effort now, not with a token budget. So when do I actually reach for Sonnet 5 over Opus 4.8? It comes down to one fork. Sonnet 5 is the default model on the free and pro plans, and it runs across the platform, Bedrock, and Google Cloud. Where it shines is volume, long agentic runs in knowledge work, where you're pushing a lot of tokens and it holds up beautifully for the money. Where I still reach right to Opus 4.8 is the hardest coding, the jobs where those 6 points matter more than the cost. It's a value pick, not a peak pick. One thing to wire in either way, Sonnet 5 ships with real-time cyber safeguards on by default. A refusal comes back as a normal, successful response, with a refusal stop reason, not an error. So handle that case in your code, or it'll look like a silent, empty reply. Plenty of headlines called Sonnet 5, the most powerful Claude. Anthropic's own system card says the opposite in plain words. Sonnet 5 does not advance our capability frontier. So here's the actual lineup. The frontier is Mythos 5 and Fable 5. The flagship is Opus 4.8. And Sonnet 5 sits in the value lane, the best mix of speed, intelligence, and price in its tier. That's the honest superlative. Not most powerful. Get the tier right, and you buy it for the right job, value, and scale, with a clear step up to Opus the day you need it. 4 things to keep after the hype fades. 1. It's a mid-tier model that closes the gap in Edge's Opus on a single knowledge score, not a flagship. 2. Same words, more tokens. The price is cost neutral, not a third off. 3. Adaptive thinking is the default now, and the old thinking and sampling parameters return 400 errors. 4. Reach for Sonnet 5 at scale and for knowledge work. Reach for Opus 4.8 for the hardest coding. Get the tier and the tokenizer right, and it's one of the best value models you can run. Thank you for watching. If this saved you a bad switch, share it with one person who's about to make it. Subscribe to AI TechBook. Next time, we go one level down into the tokenizer itself and why more tokens happens.